Welcome to the Schools of Excellence podcast, where we transform everyday leadership struggles into powerful legacies that impact generations. I'm your host, Chanie, a 20-year veteran of school leadership who has helped hundreds of school leaders achieve what many thought was impossible through our signature programs, School Leadership HQ and Enrollment Engine. With our battle-tested frameworks and blueprints, leaders have achieved 90% parent retention, 50% less staff turnover, 15% improved profit margins, and increased enrollment by 25%. My mission is simple: to revolutionize school leadership by elevating the skills, the habits, and mindset of passionate leaders ready to create lasting change. Join me as we build your legacy of excellence, one transformative conversation at a time. Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. Today's episode is deeply personal and also very practical. It's for every leader who has woken up tired, not just physically, but emotionally and relationally. And for those of you who have asked, how do I keep showing up when I'm running on fumes? How do I stay grounded when the people around me are struggling? What can I actually do when I'm so tired to do more? And if you've asked yourself any of these questions, this episode is especially for you, because the truth is that leadership requires energy, and not the kind that you wait for, but the kind of energy that you create. And today I want to walk you through how the shift has happened for me during one of the most emotionally draining periods of my life, and what I learned about leadership, grief, and the quiet power of ritual. So today's conversation is how great leaders create the energy they need even when they're tired. So this past year was one of the hardest years of my adult life. My husband, Mayor, was walking through a year of deep grief after losing his father. And for those of you that have walked through grief, grief is not loud or dramatic. It is constant. It is quiet. It is heavy. And it is grief that clings to the edges of everyday life. And if you have ever supported someone that you love through a long season of loss, then you know that grief does not sit neatly in a box. It weaves its way into everything, in the way the mornings feel, in how dinner tastes, in the silence between conversations. It seeps into your nervous system when you're trying to show up as the grounded one again and again and again. And while I was holding space for Mayor's sorrow, his numbness, his healing, I still needed to lead and show up. I still needed to run a business and hold clients and mentor school leaders and be a mom and a friend and a daughter and a CEO. And there were so many days, more days than I can count, that I felt like I was underwater, watching the entire world move on, and I was trying to keep up while dragging an anchor behind me. And I would stare at my calendar and say, who planned all these meetings? And it would be like, okay, I did that. And I would say, what can I actually do today? What can I show up with the least amount of energy that I have? And that only compounded after I had a miscarriage and then a second miscarriage 4 months later. And I brought this question to my mentor, Todd, during one of our coaching sessions. And I asked him, how am I supposed to continue to lead when I feel this depleted? Like, I really have nothing left. I am on such protection mode. And the power of a phenomenal mentor and coach is the ability to reframe your question and reframe the perspective and the world that you're coming from when you frame that question. And Todd paused and he turns to me and he says, what if you stopped waiting for energy and you started creating energy? And we talked for a little bit longer after this, one of our longer calls, a 3-hour coaching session, actually. And there, like that day was a giant shift. Like, it was a Tuesday afternoon. I'll never forget that day, because I was looking at my energy like a battery pack that is finite, depleting, tied to my sleep, to my food, to my calendar, to my mood, to my people. And Todd was inviting me to look at my energy from a place of warmth and a fire that I could actually create. And it could be something that I can feed, something that doesn't just burn on its own, but it actually responds to the care and to the rhythm that I feed it, to the breath that I give it. And This shift changed everything for me. And the crazy part is about the right time, the right place, the right order is that the shift doesn't have to take forever. It actually happened immediately. I started to show up differently. I started asking completely different questions. I started to ask, what rituals will refill me? What rhythms help me lead even when I feel wobbly? Where am I waiting to feel like it instead of just leading on purpose? And this is where I want to speak to you directly, because if you're a school leader who doesn't think you have an energy problem, because a lot of our clients come to us thinking they have a strategy. They say, I just need better systems. I need to delegate more. I need to hire. Then I would feel less overwhelmed if my team would just do what I ask them. And the truth that's underneath that is many of you have built systems, but you haven't built rhythms and rituals. You've delegated the tasks, but you have not delegated the emotional leadership. You've optimized your calendar, but not your capacity. And so you're left with the invisible weight. And that's why you feel like you're the glue. Because if you step out, everything falls apart. That leadership only works when you're on. Only works when you're on. And so I started to cultivate rituals that actually create energy versus asking, what's the least amount I can give today? It was, how do I create fuel and energy for myself? This is so much of what we help our clients do inside School Leadership HQ, because you don't need more hustle. You need tools to create energy, not just spend the energy. You need rituals that restore you, not just tasks to perform. You need rhythms that hold you so that you can hold others. You need to stop waiting to feel ready. And so that one question from Todd, when he said, what if you don't wait for energy? What if you create it? That cracked something inside of me, because it absolutely invited me to see myself differently. It invited me to see myself not as someone who has to check the tank every morning before deciding how much do I give today, but someone who could actually fuel the tank by choosing how I was going to show up. And so I started to ask, what if I'm the warmth in the room? What if it's not about how much I have to give, but about the presence that I decide to bring? And this was radical for me, because I'd been living from an energy pie chart, which was finite and portioned. There was a certain amount that went to Mayor's grief. There was a certain amount that went to my kids' needs. There was a certain amount that went to a conversation. And then, whatever was left. And so I was very rationed, very disciplined, and I held back and I hid and I protected myself and I scanned every situation from, do I have capacity for this? Do I have enough for this? But Todd's reframe was about energy isn't something that you just spend. It's actually something that you intentionally create through rhythm, through rituals, and through meaningful identity anchored action. And that's when I started to notice something else. Some of the most consistent grounded leaders that I work with are not the ones with the biggest team or the lightest load. They are the ones that build rituals that generate energy instead of depleting energy. These leaders never wait for good vibes. They create them. They do not wait for the right moment to connect with staff or give feedback or write gratitude. They build rhythms that hold those in place no matter what mood they're in. Because these leaders understand the fundamental truth that we teach inside of schools of excellence. Leadership is not how you feel, it's about what you return to. That's why so much of School Leadership HQ is we focus on identity-based rituals as we do systems and SOPs. Because what keeps your school running smoothly is not just organization. It's the energy your team feels when they walk through the door. I'm going to say this again for the leaders in the back. You can have the most pristine org chart and the cleanest project management tool and the best delegation SOPs. But if you're the one who has to hold it all together, it's because culture isn't a checklist. It's a rhythm. And you're the one who sets it. So when you stop treating energy like something that magically disappears and it will just reappear if I get enough sleep or drink the right amount of smoothies or check the right amount of task boxes, and you start seeing it as something that you can cultivate through intention and consistency and ritual, that's when things start to shift. Not all at once, but enough that you could start to feel grounded, clear, and steady. And that your leadership does not run on fumes. It is rooted in rhythm. So why do rituals generate energy? So we have this concept in our mind that rituals could be one more thing on your plate, another checkbox, another to-do, something that costs. But rituals do not drain you. They generate energy. They ground you into something deeper than your to-do list. They interrupt the noise. They create predictability in a world that is anything but predictable. And that predictability, that rhythm, gives your nervous system an anchor to hold onto so you don't have to white knuckle your way through leadership. I'm going to say that again. Rituals ground you in something deeper than your to-do list. They interrupt the noise. They create predictability in a world that is anything but predictable. And the predictability is what gives your nervous system an anchor to hold onto so you do not have to white knuckle your way through leadership. Your body stops bracing. Your brain stops scrambling. Your energy stops leaking because now something is solid under your feet. Something is solid under your feet. Here's the thing that's so important to understand when it comes to rituals. And so much of Jewish life is baked around rituals and meaning and rhythms. And I often have conversations with clients or people that see me at events because I don't speak on Friday afternoon. If I do speak on a Friday morning, it's typically locally in Florida. And I rarely try to eliminate as much travel on Fridays as much as possible because Friday night is Shabbat and it's candle lighting. And candle lighting is 18 minutes before sundown. So whatever, season it is, winter, it's earlier in the day because it gets dark earlier. In the summer, it's later after we change the clocks. And the thing to understand about candle lighting and the ritual of lighting candles, women light candles every single Friday night from when girls turn 3 years old. The ritual of candle lighting is we don't light candles because the house is ready. We don't light candles because everything was cleaned and now we're ready to welcome Shabbat. We do not light candles because all the food was cooked and the floor is swept and mopped and everyone's dressed. No, we light candles at the time because that's the time to light the candles. Whether you're ready or not, whether the house is clean or not, whether you finish cooking or not, it's irrelevant. It's candle lighting. And the moment we light the candles, there is a completely new energy that enters the home because we have created a massive separation between the work week and the holiest day of the week, Shabbat. And whatever we were doing up until 30 seconds ago stops. My phone is off. Doesn't matter if I was mid-phone call. Computer's off. Doesn't matter if work is done or not. It's irrelevant. It's Shabbat now. It doesn't matter if I needed to just finish that email. Doesn't matter. It's candle lighting. And this is the part we have to understand about rituals, is that rituals give back way more than they take. And I've seen this play out again and again and again with our clients in School Leadership HQ. We have a client who realized this in one of the most simplest ways. She was saying how when something wasn't on her calendar and she would skip it, then she'd feel guilty and spiral into, I just can't do it, right? She was stuck in what I call the spontaneity loop, waiting to feel like doing something, not doing it, feeling bad about it, and then avoiding it again. Okay, so the spontaneity loop is we wait to feel like doing something, then we don't do it because we don't feel like it, then we feel bad that we didn't do it, and then we avoid it again. But when something is ritualized, like what this client did, she created a simple end-of-day gratitude practice, one note, one message, one moment. It unlocks because she starts to see her team through a different lens. She stops carrying guilt and starts carrying clarity. We have another client, Sonia, who said something that really gave me the chills on a call. She said, I used to think that I had to feel good and feel appreciation to give it. Now I know that doing it is what fills me up. We think we need energy first in order to lead well. What if leading well is what gives you energy? What if showing up with intention, no matter how small, is the thing that replenishes the tank? That's the hidden power of the rituals. They remind you who you are. Because when you keep returning to them day after day, week after week, you start building a version of leadership that isn't based on mood. It is based on rhythm. And your team starts to trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you're predictable in the best way possible. That's when culture begins to shift, not because you've implemented a new staff handbook or had a team pizza party, but because you showed up with energy that said, I'm here, I'm steady, you can trust my presence. And that kind of leadership, that's not born in strategy. That is born in rhythm. And that is what we teach inside of School Leadership HQ. Not just the frameworks. We help the leaders install the rituals that root these frameworks in reality. So they don't live in a Google Drive folder and collect dust, but they live inside of the fabric of your soul. One of the examples that I give often is, people say things like, but I wasn't in the mood, but I didn't feel it, but it wasn't the right time or whatever it is. Okay. You show up because that's the ritual. That's the thing that's anchoring you. And I know there's so much advice on self-care, on you can't, give from an empty cup and all of this kind of stuff. And here's the thing, there's truth to all of these statements. But the thing is, when we adopt something so strongly of like, well, my cup was empty, so I couldn't give. What if giving is the thing that actually fills your cup up? What if hugging your child, looking into their innocent eyes, embracing them is what gives you the patience you need to actually do a bedtime routine? What if that's the thing that actually gives you what you need? This is what Schools of Excellence is about. It's challenge the assumptions. It's challenge the status quo. And again, I am all for self-care. I'm all for women and mothers taking time for themselves. You need time. You need capacity. You need space alone. You need time where no one is talking to you or asking you to make any decisions. Oh my God, I'm like the first person to talk about that. I go on solo retreats. Like I love alone time. And when we obsess over this thing so much of like energy, and it's finite and it's a pie chart, then when we're called for something, we're like, but my tank is empty. Okay, but what if doing this thing is the thing that fuels your tank? Okay, so I have another interesting personal story to share because again, I said this episode is deeply personal and also very practical. So a couple of months ago, I got the Aura Ring, which tracks sleep and energy and stress and all kinds of things. And one of the things that it tracks is your stress levels throughout the day. So there's stress, there's engaged, there's rested and restored. There's 4 levels that they're tracking based on your heart rate, based on movement, based on a lot of different factors. And one of the patterns that I actually noticed for me is I actually get in a restorative state. My body gets into a restorative state when I am in motion with something that I love. So after a meditation, my heart rate won't necessarily go down or all of a sudden like I'm in a relaxed state. It actually sometimes might show engaged or stressed still, even after a 20-minute meditation. When my body actually gets into a restorative state, when I'm in motion, doing things that I love, reading a book to my child, cooking a delicious meal, spending time with Mayor. Those are the things that actually fuel my energy and put me into a restorative state. Now, I know there's a lot of you that are listening to this and are, binary decision makers and saying, oh, does that mean you stopped meditating? No, I did not stop meditating. Meditation has thousands and thousands of benefits. There are so many reasons why I meditate. However, what was interesting for me to notice was that meditation, the act of meditation, wasn't always the thing that actually put my body in a restorative state. It did, but other things also did, like motion, doing things that I loved in motion. So this is so important to understand in recognizing that sometimes we think something is what gives us energy. And then until we have that, then we can't take action. I'm here to bust that. So let's go a little bit further. I want to talk about the myth of mood-based leadership. Mood-based leadership is a belief, usually unspoken, that how you lead is dictated by how you feel. You're tired, so you cancel the classroom walkthrough. You're frustrated, you snap at the staff meeting. You're inspired, you start praising everyone. You're overwhelmed, you go quiet and retreat. This happens all the time with our clients. They're overwhelmed, they're frustrated, boom, they go quiet, they retreat. And it sounds reasonable, right? We're human. But the truth that's really hard to swallow is that when your leadership is based on your mood, your team is the team that pays the price for it. Because they never know what version of you is walking through the door. They don't know if today's a good day to bring something up. They don't know if they're going to be seen, heard, or dismissed. They tiptoe, they hold back, they hesitate. And that hesitancy, that's the first crack in the culture of trust. Now, most leaders never intend to lead from mood. No one consciously walks into the building and says, today I'm going to lead from a place of frustration. What happens is you have not built rhythms that anchor your leadership. So when stress comes at you, you lead from whatever you're standing emotionally. Whatever your emotional baseline state is in that moment, boom, that's how you respond. And in a school that ripples because leadership is contagious. So your emotional inconsistency becomes your team's behavioral inconsistency. I'm going to say that again. Your emotional inconsistency becomes your team's behavioral inconsistency. Your off week becomes a month of missed deadlines, confused staff, and subtle resentment. And when your team can't trust your rhythm, they stop trusting your leadership, even if you're a brilliant operator. That's why in School Leadership HQ, our frameworks are rooted in rhythm, because systems are necessary, but rhythms are non-negotiable. Systems tell people what to do. Rhythms show them how to feel in your presence. And that's what people remember. That's what creates retention. That's what makes your team stay. And if you're noticing that your culture feels a little shaky, and if your team seems to constantly need you to set the tone and re-anchor the vibe, ask yourself, am I leading from mood or am I leading from rhythm? Because if the answer makes you pause, that is a powerful invitation. It's an invitation because you're not behind. Now you're ready for the next level. Now you're ready for the next level of leadership. So if today's message landed in your soul today, and if you've been running on fumes, if you're holding out for the smoother week, for the better season, for the magical break that never seems to come, it's time to stop waiting. Leadership is not supposed to consistently feel like survival. It's not supposed to deplete you to the point where you have nothing left for your family, your health, or your dreams. Here is the truth. You do not need a break. You need a system for replenishment. You do not need more grit or more hustle. You need rhythms and rituals. You do not need to wait to feel ready. You need to show up in your messiness. Inside School Leadership HQ, this is exactly what we help our clients do. Rituals that refuel your energy, rhythms that steady your team, leadership practices that align with your nervous system, because this isn't about pretending that everything's fine. It's not fine. This is about creating the kind of leadership that sustains you when life is heavy, because life will get heavy. Welcome to living as a grown-up. If you're ready to stop holding your breath and you're ready to become the kind of leader and your nervous system can count on and your team can count on, then I want to invite you to apply for School Leadership HQ. The link is in the show notes. We help you build the rhythms and the rituals and the replenishment that leadership actually requires. Your team does not need you to be perfect. They need your presence. Let's help you reclaim yours. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do two things for me. One, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And two, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week. And I appreciate that you have joined us.